Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes, and this is a countdown of the top 10 swords in MMORPGs. Combat has long been a staple of the MMORPG genre, from fistfights to space battles, magical energy to demonic possession, but no weapon is more iconic than the simple sword. Swords have been a part of myth and legend for as long as we've had myths and legends. Pulling a sword from a stone to become the King of England, the opening of Conan the Barbarian casting a sword from molten metal. Even martial arts film Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was entirely focused around the Green Destiny, a famous sword. There's something elegant and beautiful about a long, sharp blade, so today we're counting down the best swords to ever appear in any MMORPG. Before we begin, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to get all the notifications. Right, let's draw blades and look at the best swords in MMORPG history. Number 10. The RUBEDITE Sword, Elder Scrolls Online. The Elder Scrolls Online opens up the vast world of Tamriel with insane levels of exploration and detail crafted into each corner. You can travel from the bountiful and safe Imperial City through the ash-covered lands of Vardenfell into the snowy reaches of Skyrim, and while travelling, you'll discover myths and legends aplenty. It's a dangerous world, so what's the best way to keep yourself safe? Ultimately, you'll be aiming at the ultra high-end rarest of the rare, dropped from only final bosses and veteran dungeon runs, but while exploring and travelling, you'll want something sharp and reliable, ideally something you can craft and maintain yourself, like the RUBEDITE Sword. But don't expect to get this blade quickly. You're going to need to max out your metalworking skill and have access to the Imperial City DLC. You'll then need a full bag of RUBEDITE ingots you're willing to craft with. It's not the legendary blade of a god, but it's a solid weapon for high-level players to cleave cliff racers in two with. Number 9. The Chainsword, Warhammer 40k Eternal Crusade. I know the actual game Eternal Crusade didn't exactly do that well. It's not teaming with players, and for most of us it flew so far under the radar it's basically underground, but that's not to say it doesn't have its fair share of awesome stuff. It's no secret I'm a huge fan of the Warhammer 40k universe. The Emperor protects, and he protects mostly by giving his loyal followers a vast array of crazy weapons to shoot, melt, or full-on exterminatus other planets with. So when you get up close and personal with a hungry Tyranid, you're going to want a chainsword. The concept is simple. It's a chainsaw blade, as long as a sword, powered by a giant motor in the handle. It's the elegance and grace of a classic blade, combined with the violent and insanely dangerous nature of a revving chainsaw. It's the ultimate combination of form and function. A space marine with a chainsword, channeling the spirit of medieval melee combat while also being able to open up a tank like a sardine can, spinning, tearing metal teeth. It's the only real logical progression for a sword. Number 8. The Eden Choir Bastard Sword, Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn. Final Fantasy is no stranger when it comes to massive swords. Cloud's iconic Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII, which features on the box art and got an awesome multi-part upgrade in the film Advent Children. Then Final Fantasy VIII improved the Humble Blade by adding a gun and coming up with the creative name of Gunblade. Even the best character in FF10, Sir Auron, starts the game with a big badass sword and cuts down small enemies with ease. So Final Fantasy knows what it's doing when it comes to blades. So when Final Fantasy XIV came out, you know it was going to have a super powerful blade somewhere, and you just know it's going to take an absolute age to get. First, you've got to reach max level, which is no easy feat with the incredibly long main story quest. Then, you've got to grind the lower dungeons until you're geared and skilled enough to take on Eden's verse, Refulgence. But not just the normal version, oh no, that'd be too easy. The Savage version. You'll need up to 8 players running through this hour-long challenge, and if you do manage to defeat Shiva, you'll be rewarded with a Book of Refulgence. You'll only need to do this 5 whole times. 5 books gets you the immensely cool-looking Eden Choir Bastard Sword. A thin blade and flourished handle lets everyone around you know that, yeah, you're pretty good at killing gods. Number 7. The Lionheart Greatsword, Neverwinter Online. The world of Dungeons & Dragons has more legends and legendary items than we're able to actually keep track of. A wandering party can stumble into any old cave and have a pretty good chance to leave with the Hand of Vecna and a shard of Valindra's crown. But what should the discerning adventurer be aiming for? What blade just screams, I could kill the dungeon as well as the dragon and still have energy left for you? Well, for that, you're going to want the Lionheart Greatsword. Neverwinter Online changed their naming of classes from Great Weapon Fighter to the more 5th edition friendly Barbarian, which is a shame because this sword really is a great weapon. It's one of the Neverwinter artifact weapons, meaning you upgrade it as you go, and you can take it from good but not that good to truly legendary. To find it, you've got to fight your way through the Tower of the Mad Mage and pray to RNGesus for the drop. If you're lucky enough to have both the Greatsword and the Sword Knot, you'll notice a 10% damage increase whenever your stamina is full, and a 10% defense increase whenever your stamina is empty, making it not only super awesome looking, but useful in any situation. Number 6. Ashbringer, World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft has more weapons than most MMORPGs have players, and most of these weapons are forgettable. No one cares about your rusty dagger or your level 10 slightly magical stick, but some of them, oh boy, some of them have legends of their legend. Ashbringer is one of those weapons. To explain the plot of World of Warcraft, I'd need several hours and an overhead projector, so I'll keep it simple. Sometimes really bad stuff happens because really bad people take over and really good people show up to stop them. Sometimes those good people have crazy awesome weapons, and Ashbringer is an example of the good weapon. Named because it can kill undead stuff into actually dead stuff and leave only a pile of ash where a zombie once stood. It was wielded by Tyrion Fordring as he led the Argent Crusade against the Lich King. In the Legion expansion, players were able to actually wield Ashbringer, which made the undead population very concerned. There's even a 4-part comic series all about this sword's history. Number 5. Blade of the Black Dragon Eye, EverQuest. EverQuest is like the old grumpy granddad of MMORPGs, constantly telling the young whippersnappers of today that things were different back in his day, and he had to walk to a dungeon entrance uphill both ways, and there was none of this group finder or team speak nonsense. And while he's mostly just complaining because he's old, there are some things he's got a point about, mainly hunting rare items. EverQuest had so damn many weapons with so many stats, it was sometimes hard to work out what was best. We didn't have the advanced calculators we have today, but one sword just stood above them all, the Blade of the Black Dragon Eye. So good, in fact, they removed it from the game. Back in the day, it was a super rare drop from a high-level mob and was the second best DPS weapon in the game, being beaten only by the Scepter of Destruction. As players stop playing EverQuest and as the item no longer drops, it'll be one of the few virtual items actually becoming a real legend. In the future, no one will be able to wield this blade ever again. Number 4. Blade of Ore, Adventure Quest Worlds. You've probably forgotten about Adventure Quest, so this will be a massive nostalgia rush for you, but the 2D side-scrolling online game is still going, and it's taken not one, but 2 major steps into the MMORPG world, with Adventure Quest Worlds allowing you to team up in glorious 2D group fun, or the PC and mobile-linked AQ 3D, which lets you explore the world of Battlon with all the jumping you've ever wanted. But back in the day of single-player Adventure Quest, there was one weapon we all wanted. Not the Guardian Sword, the Blade of Ore. You had to be a paying Guardian to use this super special weapon, and you had to keep fighting random monsters until you were lucky enough to find it. Thankfully, the MMORPG Adventure Quest Worlds stood by its history and brought the Blade of Ore with it. You can even morph the blade into new and exciting versions, but personally, I'm a fan of the old school original design. It was exciting to see all those years ago, and it still makes me feel like a kid when I see it today. Number 3. The GODSWORD, Old School RuneScape. You don't have to have the highest quality textures or the highest polygon count to be considered important. Old School RuneScape proved that. There are so many weapons to choose from as you level up, from a basic bronze sword up to the cute noob dragon longsword, and even the ultra rare Blade of Saildor. But we're not talking the rarest here, we're looking at the blade with a true story behind it, the GODSWORD. Underneath RuneScape, the gods wage an endless war for dominance known as the God Wars. What are they fighting for, you ask? Well, the only weapon capable of killing a god, the GODSWORD. To wield this mighty weapon, you've got to have a pretty high attack level. Then, you've got to kill the avatars of the gods until they drop 3 separate shards of the blade and forge it yourself. Then, you'll attach one of the 4 specific god sigils to the hilt to show your allegiance. It's slow and cumbersome and not often used, but it's a badass looking blade, and the hooks and spikes mean if you did swing this thing, you're going to do some serious damage to whatever you hit. Number 2. FROSTMOURNE, World of Warcraft. Legends aren't always good, and the winners don't always get remembered. Sometimes it's the story of betrayal and redemption we remember and connect with the most, and that is absolutely true with FROSTMOURNE. The legend of the blade begins back in the real-time strategy game WARCRAFT 3 Reign of Chaos, and the expansion pack The Frozen Throne. Just and merciful Prince Arthas will do anything to protect his people from a plague ravaging his lands, but as his decisions grow more violent, his friends and mentors begin to question his sanity. When Arthas discovers the sword hidden deep in an icy cave, he discards his holy hammer Lightbringer and claims FROSTMOURNE for his own. Over time, it slowly steals his soul. Arthas is beholden to the sword's awful power, turning him into the first Death Knight. He then slaughters his own army and returns to his homeland to kill his father and ravage the city with his undead horde. His journey leads Arthas to becoming the Lich King and the final boss of the Warcraft expansion, Wrath of the Lich King. FROSTMOURNE is an iconic weapon featured on the box art for the game and never leaving the Lich King's hand until it was shattered by Ashbringer. And number 1. Eternity, Guild Wars 2. The word legendary is often overused. This is legendary, that's legendary. Everything you think is even slightly good is legendary. If you use a word too much, it loses all meaning, so we need to be careful with it and respect it. It's a strong word, meaning rare, few and far between. Long stories will be woven and tales told of whatever the thing is, and people will flock from miles around to see it, and it will always be amazing. The Eternity Greatsword from Guild Wars 2 is legendary. Guild Wars 2 has horizontal progression, meaning players spend most of the endgame searching for rare-looking skins, not necessarily better items, and the Eternity Sword is one of the rarest in the game. Crafted by players in the Mystic Forge, you need to have already found 2 other immensely rare swords, Sunrise and Twilight. Then have collected some crystalline dust and a couple of Philosopher's Stones, mix them all together and create your very own Eternity. The blade will actually cycle through looking like both Twilight and Sunrise depending on the time of day in-game. The blade itself seems to cut into the fabric of reality as it doesn't have defined edges and copies the Guild Wars 2 water painting style. Whenever the blade is swung, it leaves a trail of empty void behind it. Ethereal flames rise from the hilt when it's slung over your back. Drawing the sword makes you glow with either light or dark energy, and every step the wielder takes leaves puddles behind them, which when gazed into show a starry sky. Depending on the time of day, glowing orbs also softly rise from these puddles. Seeing Eternity for the first time is an absolute sight to behold. Seeing it for the 100th time is no different. It's a thing of beauty, a legendary weapon in every aspect, and anyone wielding it feels like a true hero of Tyria. Thanks for watching. What's your favourite sword and what swords did I miss? Let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video then please drop a like, a sub or ring the bell. And a massive thank you to all my supporters on Patreon who make all my content possible. Check the description below for links to Twitch, Discord and Patreon. And as always, have a great day.